Good afternoon, Kabo. I'm just gonna give, let's say, 2 more minutes before I start, since it's only you at the moment. Um, yeah, so we'll just give it 2 more minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Hi, Kabo. I'm going to start the session. I am recording, so I will be obviously placing this on my Unisa. I'm just going to type a message here for the students to tell them that I'm starting the presentation, so I won't be able to see any student interaction until the end of the PowerPoint presentation, and then I will get to any questions and answers. So just give me 1 minute while I type that up.
All right.
Okay, so for the purpose of today's session, and Kabo, I'm now speaking to one person, but I'm going to pretend that I'm speaking to a bunch of students. This is the first of 3 sessions. You do not have to attend more than one session unless you have more questions that you need to have answered. So if you have gone through the exam brief, etc., you will know that we are using Rwanda as a case study in international communication. Obviously, this is an exam portfolio, so you have several weeks to complete this particular assessment. Therefore, we do expect more than, we are not testing your memory. We are testing your ability to think analytically. So if you are only defining a concept, and we'll get to the questions now, but if you are providing an answer that only can define a concept correctly, but you don't apply it to the Rwanda case study, you will not be receiving any marks for your application. So please keep that in mind. This is a structured academic writing task where we ask you to apply theoretical frameworks from your learning units and the prescribed readings to this real world case study that is quite complex. So you have 3 things available to you as you write. You have your Rwanda case study, which is the extended case study text in your exam portfolio brief. You have the knowledge or the content of Learning Unit 5, which is International Marketing, and Learning Unit 7, which is Transnational Issues, the Flow of People, and then you can engage with the 6 prescribed readings that are listed in the examination paper. So let's move then to what today's prep session will entail. We are going to look at the Rwanda scenario so that you understand the case study. Then I will do a question by question breakdown just to explain to you what each question demands. I'll quickly explain the key theories and the readings and explain to you how you can apply them analytically. Then we will look at the mark allocation strategy, where the marks are and how to get them. Then importantly, I will speak to academic integrity and AI and what we are looking for and what we are definitely not looking for. And finally, some tips for success. So the Rwanda scenario, which is the case study we have provided for you, it is important that you read the complete text of the case study. You won't be able to answer the questions if you haven't read the scenario carefully. And the scenario provides you with quite a lot of material that your answers will have to draw on specifically. So there are several dimensions that are mentioned in the case study. We have the historical context, and the key details from the scenario is that in the 1994 genocide killed approximately 800,000 people in 100 days. Rwanda has spent 30 years rebuilding its international image following that. Then we look at the dimension of government strategy. And it is an integrated approach. So you have international marketing and public diplomacy and tourism and digital communication, and all of that has been driven very much by President Kagame. Then we have flagship projects. That is, for example, the WEF meeting in 2018, the CHOGM meeting in 2022, the Arsenal Visit Rwanda deal, which is estimated to be worth $30 million a year. And then also we have the fact that Kigali is ranked the cleanest city in Africa. Then we look at technology and innovation, and specifically Kigali Innovation City, which is still under construction, the Kigali Convention Center, and the medical delivery via drones. Then, very importantly, tourism, mountain gorilla trekking, ecotourism. In 2023, there were 1.2 million visitors that were mainly visiting Rwanda for ecotourism, and $800 million revenue was targeted by 2024. Then we have the very sort of complicated dimension of the contested reputation that Rwanda has. So that is the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. They both document political repression, press restrictions, and transnational repression of dissidents. Next dimension is digital strategy. The country has a very active X, Instagram, and YouTube. So they also have influencer partnerships with Visit Rwanda, and then also the diplomatic missions of the country amplify the messaging. Then we can look at the flow of people. Rwandair flies to more than 30 destinations. Kigali is considered to be a transit hub. The country is, and specifically the capital, is known for its conference tourism, and there's also a lot of academic exchanges. Then we also look at the involvement in the DRC, where we see the critical coverage of Rwanda's military presence in the DRC that circulates widely internationally. And finally, gender achievements. Over 60% of the parliament is female, and that is among the highest globally. So every answer that you will provide in your exam portfolio must reference specific details from the scenario. Generic answers that can apply to any country will not earn you full marks. So let's then move on to the mark allocation at a glance, and where, so that you can sort of know where your marks live, so to say. So firstly, we have the introduction and the conclusion. They are both 2.5 marks. So in your introduction, you will contextualize Rwanda, you will identify certain themes, and it will give us a roadmap for how you are going to structure your assignment. In question 2, that one deals specifically with international marketing, where we look at environmental factors, the Furudi reading, and 1P of the 4 Ps. Question 3 for 15 marks. This is where country reputation comes in. Here you will refer to Hitz et al., the definition and the tension, and also at Howe et al., where we will look at branding versus reputation. Question 4 is public diplomacy, nation branding, and media. This is very much focused Learning Unit 7 and the Rasmussen and Jan and Winner reading. Digital communication is the main theme of question 5 for 10 marks. So here you will look at platforms and critical content, also at the CO prescribed reading. Question 6 looks at the flow of people, also draws from Learning Unit 7, and then question 7 is your critical reflection, where you will provide me an argumentative paragraph on branding versus reality. Question 8, then the conclusion. Here is where you will provide synthesis, and you will look at an unresolved question from the case study. And then 10 marks allocated to technical presentation. So just from a strategic perspective, question 2 and question 4 together are worth 40 marks, nearly half the paper. So prioritize these 2 questions. Question 7 is the highest order question and awards marks for quality of argument, not for reaching any particular conclusion. Okay, so now let's work through this question by question. Question 1 and question 8, I'm discussing them at the same time. It's the introduction and the conclusion. In the introduction seems small, but it sets the intellectual tone for your entire portfolio. The strong introduction signals to us that you understand Rwanda as a communication case and not merely as a political case or as a tourism case. So what must a strong introduction do? It must contextualize Rwanda within international communication scholarship. Explain why Rwanda is a significant and intellectually interesting case for international communication scholars. Reference the deliberate nature of Rwanda's image transformation and its integration of marketing, public diplomacy, and digital communication. And then you will identify what you consider 1 or 2 of the key themes. For example, the relationship between place, branding, and country reputation, or the role of public diplomacy and media in shaping national reputation. Then you will provide us with a roadmap where you will tell the marker what analytical argument you will develop across questions 2 to 7, and then engage at least one of the prescribed readings or the learning unit concept. So this is where you are signaling your theoretical grounding, and then identify the central analytic tension. It can be between Rwanda's sophisticated communication strategy and the contested socio-political reality that underlie it. This particular tension runs through the entire paper. An introduction that describes Rwanda's history without engaging with the communication theory will receive here at least, at the most, 1 mark. So we want to see that you understand Rwanda as a communication case. Then when we look at the conclusion, it's very similar. Here you are going to synthesize what you have written. So don't repeat your introduction or list question answers. You will reflect on Rwanda's broader significance for international communication scholarship. You will identify at least 1 specific intellectually substantive unresolved question or tension. And you will, furthermore, you will avoid vague things like more research is needed. You will have to name a genuine scholarly paradox, and you will show that your paper hangs together as a coherent analytical argument. Okay, so let's then get to the actual serious content. Here we have question 2, which is then deals with the international marketing analysis. I'm just quickly going to the relevant notes that I have here for you. So this is one of the 2 highest weighted questions, which I've mentioned already. in the paper, and has 3 distinct parts that must each be addressed. So part A is the 3 environmental or the uncontrollable factors. So you can get up to 9 marks, 3 marks per factor. So learning unit 5 discusses 6 environmental factors that affect how organizations market themselves internationally. You must identify 3, apply each to Rwanda specifically, and provide concrete evidence from the scenario. Definitions without application will earn 0. So the 6 factors, you have culture, political system, infrastructure, language, and the legal system. And you can look at the content that I've provided here. Remember, you cannot just copy this willy-nilly. You need to provide me relevant information from your readings as well. Then part B is where we are looking at place branding, image, and reputation. Once again, up to 9 marks. So Faroudi et al. Provides a framework that distinguishes between 3 related but distinct concepts. An excellent script will integrate these as an interrelated framework and not treat them as 3 isolated definitions. So we have place branding, place image, and place reputation. So place branding, it's a deliberate, orchestrated effort to project a specific identity. Place image is the perception held by outsiders. Note here that an image is contested. It's not singular. And place reputation is a long-term evaluation formed through accumulated experience and action. And then finally, for the final 2 marks, up to 2 marks, you have to name 1 element of the marketing mix. And here your quality of justification will matter. And the 4 P's that form part of the marketing mix are promotion, place, product, and price. For promotion, you can look at the Arsenal deal, Visit Rwanda social media, influencer partnerships, conference events. For place, you can look at Rwanda Air expansion, Kigali as a transit hub, a distribution strategy. Then you can look at product, guerrilla trekking, Kigali as a conference destination and the innovation city, and price, premium ecotourism pricing, conference venue competitiveness. Then we have country reputation. That is the topic of question 3. Okay, so once again, this is for 15 marks. So Hitz, Schreiger, and Gabel provides a contemporary measurable framework for a country reputation. And here we look at country reputation is measurable, it's dynamic and multidimensional, and it's not a simple positive or negative assessment. Reputation is distinct from image. Image is a snapshot of current perception. Reputation is a longer-term evaluative judgment that is formed through accumulated experience, knowledge, and information. And then Hitz and al. Identify multiple dimensions of reputation that can be applied to Rwanda, and that is governance, people, culture, exports, and institutions. For part B, you will look at reputation as constructed and contested, and this is the analytical core of the question. Here you will need to engage with the tension between Rwanda's development achievements and its human rights criticism. So you can look at, for example, how achievements build reputational capital, and these are real actions. But at the same time, the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, they are legitimate reputational inputs. They're not just propaganda. So then we can look at reputation management via global events, which doesn't fully neutralize the negatives that we see. So reputational is dual. It's positive in business tourism, but it's contested in human rights. And the key insight that you can draw here is that reputation is dynamic and contested, and that it's not a fixed asset. And then finally, part C, this is where we look at nation branding versus reputation management, how it all reviewed 20 years of nation branding research and positioned nation branding as a deliberate strategy to manage international perceptions in support of national goals. Rwanda's strategy clearly fits how et al.'s definition of nation branding. However, they also recognize that nation branding cannot be sustained without the underlying reality. So here, to have a strong answer, you will resist a binary answer. Rwanda's strategy is simultaneously branding and reputation management, both operating imperfectly at the same time. Okay, so then we move on to question 4, which deals with public diplomacy, nation branding, and media. This is for 20 marks, and you will see there for each of the 3 parts, we have a specific reading or learning unit on which you must focus. So for part A, that one deals specifically then with public diplomacy and forms of diplomacy. And you will see that Learning Unit 7 defines diplomacy as a communication system for managing interstate relations and introduces several forms that are relevant to Rwanda. It looks at formal diplomacy, public diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, and media diplomacy. Furthermore, we also look at the concept of soft power in this particular part. So soft power, from the Rwanda perspective, we see that the strategy is fundamentally a soft power exercise. They use culture, institutions, and attractive narratives rather than coercion or military force. So then we move on to part B, which concentrates on the Rasmussen and Markelson article, where we look at nation branding as the new PR of states. So in a sense, Rwanda confirms this, but at the same time, Rwanda also complicates this. So the Rwanda case study can then, in other words, both confirm and complicate this core claim. The government has, in terms of confirmation, the government has professionalized its international communication. It has appointed dedicated tourism and investment promotion boards. They've pursued high-profile partnerships. They've managed a carefully curated visual and narrative identity across digital platforms, and they've leveraged international events as PR opportunities. But at the same time, the case study also complicates the claim, because if nation branding is the new PR of states, it shares PR's fundamental vulnerability. PR cannot indefinitely substitute for organizational reality. When the underlying reality, like the human rights violations, the military involvement in the DRC, contradicts the message that Rwanda is a model of good governance, a credibility crisis becomes increasingly likely, and no amount of PR investment permanently neutralizes credible negative facts on the ground. So once again, if you want to have a strong answer, you cannot only agree or disagree with Rasmussen. You will need to evaluate the claims critically. Show how Rwanda both confirms and complicates the argument. This is what critically evaluate means. And then for part C, here we look at news media and country reputation. Now, Jane and Winner argue that international news media are among the most powerful shapers of a country's reputation, independent of what governments communicate officially. Here we are then, in other words, going to look at Rwanda's dual media environment, where we will have positive elements and at the same time critical elements. We will also look at the concepts of agenda setting and framing. These are concepts from Learning Unit 7 that is directly applicable to part C of question 4. And then you must always remember that reputation is not singular. It is plural across media ecosystems. Then we move to question 5, that deals with digital communication. So here you have 3 required elements. Element 1 is you must look at digital platforms as instruments. Then element 2 is you must look at critical content and contested environments. And then thirdly, you will look at SEO, the 2013 source that says that argues that digital communication has transformed public diplomacy by enabling direct government to public communication across borders, bypassing traditional media gatekeepers. So those are the 3 elements that are crucial to successfully answering question 5. Question 6 looks at the flow of people. Here you will need to choose 2 out of 3 dimensions. And we will award up to 5 marks per dimension. And we are here requiring engagement with theoretical content, not just a description of Rwanda. The first dimension is international tourism, and here you look at the framework that was given to you in Learning Unit 7, which identifies 4 actors in the tourism system: the tourist, the host, the travel industry, and the government. Also relevant here is the concept of window dressing. Rwanda creates a very curated tourist experience that may not reflect all aspects of Rwandan social reality. And this is explicitly acknowledged by scholars of tourism as a form of image management. The tourist Rwanda experience is itself a communication instrument. And then some data points from the scenario is the 1.2 million international arrivals in 2023, 800 million tourism revenue target by 2024. Tourism is, in other words, not peripheral. It is central to Rwanda's economic and reputational strategy. Then the second dimension that you can choose here is conference and event tourism. Once again, we look at Learning Unit 7, where we see that international conferences create forums for exchange that simultaneously focus global media attention on the host country. If we look at it from a concept from the Rwanda case study, we have examples like the CHOGM 2022, where 56 nations gathered and positioned Rwanda as a capable, trusted host. Also, the WEF Africa of 2018, and then very regular AU and UN events. What is important here is also the efficiency of communication. Conference tourism generates media coverage, business relationships, and diplomatic capital simultaneously. So it makes it arguably the most communication efficient form of international engagement that Rwanda can pursue. Okay, and then the third dimension that you can look at here is academic, cultural, and sports exchanges. And here, importantly, is the Arsenal partnership, because it functions simultaneously as a sports exchange and as a place branding instrument. The Visit Rwanda shirt sponsorship is not merely advertising. It is a form of cultural diplomacy that associates Rwanda with a globally recognized, positively valued institution. To winner of the Premier League, they will receive their cup on Sunday. And then let's look at question 7, which is the critical reflection. And this is the highest order question. And this just means you need to think the most in this particular question. So we've given you a claim. Rwanda's international reputation is primarily the product of a sophisticated communication strategy rather than the outcome of genuine socio-political transformation. In the long run, reputation built on branding cannot be sustained without the underlying reality. So we've given you a claim. What we want you to do is to take a clear stance. Do you agree with the claim? Do you disagree with the claim? Or do you take a nuanced position? Taking a nuanced position, just a tip, will most likely earn you 9 to 10 marks in this case. And then you need to back up whatever you decide. If you agree with the claim, there are certain readings that you can relate to. If you disagree with the claim, there are certain readings that you can relate to. And if you take on a nuanced position, once again, you can incorporate readings from both. So what is required for question 7? You need to take a clear stance. You need to refer to 2 prescribed readings and 1 concept from Learning Unit 5 or Learning Unit 7 and a very specific Rwanda evidence. That will give you your 10 marks for this question. So how are we going to use the prescribed readings analytically? For Rudy et al. Is most relevant to question 2. The core argument made by Faroudi et al. Is it looks at place branding, image, and reputation framework. Howell et al. Is used in question 3. The core argument is that that they've done 20 years of nation branding research, and they said that branding is not the same as reputation, but rather looks at the relationship between them. Rasmussen and Marklison, the core argument, nation branding is the new PR of states, and the implications that it has for security and diplomacy. Hitz, Schweiger, and Gable, the core argument looks at country reputation dimensions, governance, culture, exports, people, and institutions. And it's relevant to question 3. Jane and Winner is used in question 4. The core argument there is that news media is a powerful independent shaper of country reputation. And then SEO is used in question 5. Core argument there is that online social relations and the digital public diplomacy looks at online social relations and digital public diplomacy, and also looks at government to public digital communications. Okay, now, students, we had a huge issue with unethical use of generative AI in assignment 2. You received a little love letter from the markers that said, you have used AI unethically. That was a first warning. If this happens again in the exam portfolio, and we will look at your assignment 2, if we pick up and remember the Turnitin report gives 2 reports. The first one is the plagiarism one. Then we click through to the AI similarity report. Okay, that is the one that is very, very crucial. If we see that there was unethical use of generative AI in both assignment 2 and in your exam portfolio, it will lead to a university disciplinary against you. Okay, there is no reason for you to use AI. You can use Google if you are unsure about a definition of a word, but there is no reason for you to take your exam portfolio and put it into a form of generative AI and upload it and upload everything else and ask it to answer your questions. The thing is, this Turnitin report picks it up immediately. And the more students upload the particular assignment, the more the generative AI learns. And we see that in what you are submitting to us. 80% of the students in assignment 2 had basically the same introductory sentence. I mean, there's no chance of that if you didn't use AI. So please do not use AI. This time, any similarity above 70% will get an automatic 0. You will also get a disciplinary if it is a second time that you have been caught out doing this. So we require knowledge of your specific location, experience, and current access to information. AI tools cannot accurately identify real, currently active, and this is something that's now different. I'm sorry, that one still relates to the previous, and I'll take that out. Still refers to the assignment 2, but please take this into account. You cannot use AI. I will take this out of my slides. Apologies for that. But we are going to look out for certain AI red flag markers. An impeccably structured answer that applies theory only superficially and generically. That is a flag. It will be picked up by the AI detection on Turnitin. You cannot only provide correct terminology with no genuine scenario-specific application. If you are using multiple readings in the same, and you're citing them in the same sentence without engagement, that is a red flag. If you are providing me with an answer that can apply equally to Qatar, Rwanda, or South Korea, that is a red flag. And we are going to then, if we are suspicious, and if the Turnitin report indicates it, it will be flagged for academic integrity review. It will not simply be marked down. So please, students, plagiarism also includes the unacknowledged use of AI tools. Please, please, please do not use AI unethically. If you are using something like Grammarly to help you with your writing, and when I say helping with your writing, I don't mean write. I mean, you have Grammarly installed on Word, and it picks up where you are making a mistake with your grammar. It is not writing for you, because that is also the unethical use of AI. It's not allowed to write for you. But yes, if you're using a spell checker, that is fine. You are in any case going to once again complete the declaration where you are going to complete those 5 questions, and you are going to write in detail how you used any form of AI. Signing that declaration while knowing that you used AI, that is unethical, and that will also result in an academic integrity review. So let's look at some top tips for examination success. Please apply, don't just define. If you're just going to provide me with definitions, you will not get a mark. Every theory must be applied to the Rwanda scenario with concrete evidence. You need to be Rwanda specific. Name the Arsenal deal, CHOGM, drone delivery, HRW criticism, Rwandair, Kigali Innovation City. If you provide generic answers, you will lose marks. Take an analytical position. We are going to reward students who argue, not those who describe. Question 7 particularly demands a very clear and defended stance. Then integrate your readings naturally. Don't isolate your readings in separate sentences. Weave them into your argument. So avoid saying, according to Ferrudi 2016, place branding is. Integrate your readings in a coherent way. Please write in academic prose. Bullet point responses will not earn marks. Write structured paragraphs. It's an examination portfolio. And then use Harvard referencing throughout. You will have an author, a year, a page where applicable. And you will reference within your answers, not just in the list of sources consulted at the end. So hopefully you are now prepared. I'm reminding you that submission is on the 2nd of June by 11 o'clock at night. There will not be any extensions granted because this is an exam. It's just as well you are sitting in a venue writing an exam. There are no extensions for that. So this is the date, 2 June at 11. And remember, apply the theory, never define, be Rwanda specific in every answer, argue, don't just describe, reference, Harvard referencing throughout, and academic prose. I will provide you just with a reminder of how you are going to structure your exam portfolio. So in other words, that you will have a front page, that you will have a table of contents, no table of contents, you are losing marks. If you don't have a list of sources consulted, you are losing marks. If you have no in-text references, you are losing marks. So all of that will be stipulated to you, and I will add that as a separate document under announcements for you next week. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. I see we have 2 students now. Students, let me take then this opportunity to open the floor for you should you have any questions. You can go ahead, since there are just 2 of you, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you said something about in-text citations.
Yes.
When you said you must like
Yes.
involve them coherent. I didn't get that part. Can you please repeat?
Yes. So you'll have in-text referencing, obviously throughout, because unless it is an argument, if you are making your argument, but you are backing it up with references. So you are consistently making reference to what you have read. It's not your own ideas. So you will consistently reference in text, but you need to integrate those readings. So what I just meant is don't constantly every paragraph start with according to Sayo, according to this person, according to that person. You should also avoid long direct quotes. At a 3rd year level, you are expected to write in a very specific academic register. So you need to be able to take what you have read and put it in your own words, and then referencing throughout the text. And then once again, and your list of sources consulted. So that is what I was just referring to there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Vincent, any questions from your side?
No, there's no question on my side right now, but I wanted to find out how do we reference this scenario since we're going to use some of it on our portfolio.
Okay, I think the best would just be to say case study. So I would say you can, I'm going to write it here in the meeting chat and I will add that as well. Case study 2026. There we go. There you go. So you can just have case study 2026 as an in-text reference.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Okay. So yes, I think that's an overview. I'm just going to change a little bit on the PowerPoint presentation on the slides where it was making reference to assignment 2. Apologies, I didn't catch that when I was sort of copying from the previous one. What I will do is I will upload this recording, and there will be, as I've mentioned, 2 more sessions. You don't need to come to the whole session. You saw now that this presentation took about 40 minutes. So if you want to, you can always join 40 minutes afterwards. If you by next week have more specific questions, then you can always just tune in later so that you don't have to listen to the whole presentation again. Otherwise, please just send me an email. I don't use the quick note or the quick messaging system on MyUnisa. We are really discouraging students from using that because we don't have constant access to that, but we do have constant access, except for over the weekends, to our emails. So if there's anything that comes up, please just drop me an email and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I really want to thank the 2 of you for joining me this afternoon. And yes, I might see your names again in the next sessions. Otherwise, I will definitely see your names among the submissions on the 2nd of June. Thank you so much, students. You must have a good rest of the afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.